Welcome to America Uncanceled. Matt Cartwright has represented Pennsylvania's 8th district since 2013. In that time, he has ranked in the top 4th of the congressmen for missed votes. I mean, being a congressman is not that hard, right? And you miss your votes, quite an accomplishment. It's amazing that Cartwright can miss so many votes considering the multimillionaire owns a private jet. A recent report in the Free Beacon revealed that Cartwright is likely using taxpayer dollars to pay for that jet's parking. How is it that someone like this is still in office? Jim Bognet is a Republican running against Cartwright, and he joins us now. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we're reading all these stories about how the big red wave is dissipated, that Joe Biden has regained his footing, that voters all over the country are pining for 9 months of paid-for abortion. What are you finding is happening in your race?
Well, Matt, you won't be surprised to hear that you shouldn't believe everything you read in the corporate. We feel fantastic out here in Northeast Pennsylvania. You know, Scranton, Pennsylvania is Joe Biden's so-called hometown, even though he left in 1953. We see that people are very, very angry. They know they were lied to by both Joe Biden and Matt Cartwright, who said they would be moderates and work across the aisle. We know that they're flat-out liberals. My opponent Cartwright's voted with Biden 100% of the time. He is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Biden administration. Joe Biden owns Matt Cartwright's vote, and in 54 days, we're going to get rid of Matt Cartwright, we're going to get rid of Nancy Pelosi, and the papers are going to say Joe Biden's liberal agenda repudiated in his hometown of Scranton, PA.
Well, I mean, the CPAC rating for Cartwright is a mere 6%, which is, that's pretty low.
That's kind of like he stabbed in the dark and got one thing right over.
Meaning he has to be one of the most liberal members of Congress, definitely not a moderate in any way. As we know, the Democrats have just gone so far to the left and the progressives are running the show. But we also know Cartwright's got a lot of these ethics scandals that have been going around. Talk to us about what's happened there.
He's been called one of the most corrupt members of Congress by outside watchdog groups. One example is he owns 4 houses across the country. He decided not to pay his taxes on the one in Washington, D.C. for 5 of the last 7 years. Last week, we just found out that he is paying $425 of our money, of federal taxpayer money, to park his private jet in Delaware. He flies it back and forth to D.C. from Scranton as he's yelling at us to buy Teslas. We also know he did something that's really extraordinary. He filmed a television commercial for a private law firm that donated $40,000, the owners of that law firm, to his campaign from his congressional office wearing his congressional pin. He's literally selling his office to his donors. He's been crooked. He's been called crooked, and we're going to get rid of him here very shortly.
Well, this whole idea of the corruption of the Democratic Party is something that I think we really got to press in on. We also have to press in on this, how much they hate Americans. They hate the people who vote. You were there. Joe Biden gave this terrible speech in front of Independence Hall with the red wall, and he called my 82-year-old mom a semi-fascist, and your parents as well. What was the Pennsylvania's take on this really disgraceful speech?
Well, 2 weeks ago, he came to Wilkes-Barre. I was born in Luzerne County. That's where I live. And he called me a semi-fascist, which is kind of like a semicolon. Nobody knows what it means. 2 days later, Kevin McCarthy came up to town, and he did an event for me. We raised a fair amount of money. And then the best part about it was President Trump came up 2 days later, did his first rally of the fall campaign here in my district, because everybody knows that this district has to be won for us to take back the majority. President Trump won it twice after after Barack Obama and Joe Biden had won it in 2008 and 12. President Trump won it both times. We will win here, and we have to win here to take back the majority.
When you're campaigning across your district, what are the issues that are resonating and really are of concern for the people of Pennsylvania? And do you think that they're starting to see the light that being under Democrat leadership is pretty much fascism?
Well, they've seen it. I mean, we have an energy industry that should be booming up here. We have natural gas deposits that could power the whole East Coast of America. Joe Biden and Matt Cartwright won't let us exploit that. Inflation, I've been telling people this is a gas and groceries election. We've seen our gas prices up over $5. They're still over $4. It is really hurting people. A lot of our folks up here heat their homes with fuel oil. We're seeing over $4.50, $5 fuel oil prices. That's destroying senior citizens' incomes. And then last but not least, illegal immigration. You'd think, what does illegal immigration have to do with Northeast PA? We have a boatload of illegal immigrants coming here through New York City. The Biden administration, with Cartwright's help, has been doing ghost flights into the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton airport, flying illegal immigrants from Arizona and Texas into my backyard, into our hometowns up here. Fentanyl is destroying cities all over northeastern Pennsylvania. You know, we've been called the heroin capital of Pennsylvania. That hurts your heart when your hometown is called the heroin capital. And it's because illegal immigrants and an unsecured border have allowed the cartels to send fentanyl all over northeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I tell you, it's heartbreaking to think about that. And, you know, what adds to the wound, the pain of the wound, is the idea that corporate America has jumped in on the wrong side of all these critical issues, whether it's this open border, the outpouring of drugs into our communities. We unfortunately learned the other day that big companies like Walmart want to pay for 9 months of abortion, pay for the travel, pay for the lodging, to kind of push people towards these employees. We learned the other day that the major credit card companies are trying to track all gun sales and to segregate them into an area, essentially making another kind of like national gun purchasing list, which has always been so offensive. Why is it that the people who are going to propel you into office, why is it that these corporations are so on the wrong side of all these questions?
Well, I'll tell you what, the people here in working class Pennsylvania are hopping mad over the fact that Boeing and Capital One and General Electric are funding my opponent's campaign.
Yeah.
All of my opponent's money comes from corporate PACs. It comes from New York City and San Francisco and Seattle. And they are trying to run a campaign to pull the wool over the eyes of people here in rural Pennsylvania. I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. The corporate media and corporate America has sold out the American people. And the American people aren't stupid. We know what they're trying to do. And that's why this year I think you're going to see historic margins. I still think the corporate media is, maybe smoking something that John Fetterman would like. It's going to be a good election for the Democrats. We're seeing unbelievable energy from our base, and we're even seeing it from conservative Democrats and independents who are just sick and tired of where Joe Biden and Matt Cartwright have taken the country.
You know, Jim, the other thing to consider as you win this race, which I'm really hopeful you will, this focus on the corporate PACs and where their money's going to. We just said that Matt Cartwright has a 6% with the ACU voting record, which essentially means he's wrong on everything all the time. You said he votes with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. There's nothing there for a corporation to like, yet their money is funding him because of woke and because of this signing on to all this left-wing cultural stuff. So when you get here to D.C., why don't you not meet with all these CEOs of these companies? Why don't you tell these companies until they go back to neutral, you're not really interested in dealing with them?
Well, I agree with you 100%. We've seen the wokeness destroy our children's lives with the mandatory masking and the CRT. Yeah. People have seen what corporate America and the wokesters have done to our children, and we don't want it. We're going to stop it, and that's why this election is so important.
I'm glad you brought it up. I know one of the areas you've talked about is defending parents' rights and stopping CRT, which I think is absolutely critical. In addition to that is obviously stopping the mutilation of children with what we've seen, this dramatic push by even some of the hospitals to allow for these medical procedures to happen to children at such a young age. How do you think Congress should move forward, when you're elected, to make sure we stop this obsession with causing chaos in the issue of gender?
Well, I just think it's an outrage. I mean, we saw it in my home state. The famous swimmer at University of Pennsylvania was 2 hours away from us. And, I was very much involved in high school sports when I was a kid. I played football and basketball here in Hazleton. And to think that all of the progress we've made under Title IX, getting young girls, getting women involved in sports, and getting them true equality, that's all being destroyed by wokeism. Yeah. We are literally letting men enter their sporting events. It is sad. I was at a high school football game the other day. I've been at high school soccer games. It's getting to the point of insanity that we're letting this occur. And the average American's waking up. You know, for a long time, people didn't see it happening in their communities. Now we're seeing it. If we don't stand up and stop it, and I hope to be a part of that in Congress, they're going to keep doing this. And they're going to tell us we're crazy for objecting to it.
We just signed up to support Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm surprised they allow her to introduce legislation. I thought they didn't want to let her be a real congressperson.
They'll try to ban her. Don't worry, it'll happen.
Her effort to try to stop, like you said, the mutilation of our kids, the sexualization of our kids, CPAC has signed on and is really pushing this legislation. But as we're going into back to school, our kids are back to school now. They've been in for over
they're
a
ready
week.
to get out of school. They're exhausted.
They're ready for all these stories are coming out again. It's the same old crap. They haven't changed the curriculum. They haven't changed their America hating. Are you seeing this kind of stuff popping up in Pennsylvania? Is it really infuriating parents?
Well, the number one thing that I've seen that's infuriating parents is what the public health authorities and the Democratic governors did during COVID.
Yeah.
I campaigned for the last year saying, if you still think that our kids should be forced to wear a mask, you should be in jail, not in charge. That has been the single hottest grassroots issue here in Pennsylvania, is that they're still looking for excuses not to have our kids come to school. And they're still looking for reasons to make our children wear masks in school, even though we know what the truth is about health risks to children from COVID. So we're going to keep fighting for that, because if they can do that to our kids with COVID, they can really do it with anything. We need parents to get involved. We've won a lot of big victories at the school board level here in Northeast Pennsylvania. Yeah. Constitutional conservatives elected, but we need to keep pushing that. Thank you for CPAC for fighting for that. But that would be a message I'd have to your people all over the country. Stay involved in your kids' education. Keep running for school board, because parents care about kids and know what kids need more than our quote-unquote public health and educational authorities.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's the parents who need to be empowered. I think another issue that we're seeing across so many of these cities as well is the issue of crime. As we know, Philadelphia has been almost like a ground zero, where you're seeing a growing number of violence and murders as well, and burglaries, and just it's just so tragic, because we were just having this conversation today of, are our children safe? Is it safe? Every American should have literally a right to be safe in their communities. You tweeted out, Democrats like John Fetterman and Matt Cartwright are more concerned about the well-being of criminals than the safety of our citizens. When I'm in Congress, I'll stop the liberal insanity of releasing violent criminals back onto our streets and support our men and women in blue. Now, CPAC, we're involved in criminal justice reform, but public safety is always the priority when dealing with any criminal justice reform. Your reaction as to what needs to get done to make sure that we can tackle crimes in so many parts of the country?
Well, number one, my opponent, Matt Cartwright, has thrown in with John Fetterman. John Fetterman's number one mission the last few years he's been lieutenant governor is to get hardened criminals out of jail. I'm not talking about nonviolent offenders. I'm talking about violent offenders. He's tried to put them back on the streets. So I think cashless bail is a horrible idea. I think we've seen the wages of that in New York and Philly. We get the Philadelphia news up here. Carjackings are through the roof in Philadelphia. Once you send the signal, like Cartwright and Biden and Kamala Harris contributing to a bail fund to get people that burned down the city of Minneapolis out of jail, that is shameful. Once you send the message to our men in blue that you don't have their back, that their leaders don't have their back, we are on the road to anarchy. We must get back to supporting our police. Now, Joe Biden and Matt Cartwright, they're saying, oh, we were always for the police. But when these hoodlums, when these lunatics were trying to burn our country to the ground in the summer of 2020, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and my opponent, Matt Cartwright, didn't say anything. They would rather stand with Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush and these lunatic squad members. They'd rather stand with them than our men in blue. I will always stand with our men in blue.
Yeah, no, that's true. You think about that. 24 people died during those riots. A police officer was killed in St. Louis. Our president, he's everyone's president, was taken to the bunker at the White House because of the violence happening all around the fence there on 18 acres. I mean, we forget how the media wouldn't cover those riots, right? All they want to do is try to say it's the semi-fascists of MAGA world who we have to fear. And this is a dangerous thing when the media can lie so overtly.
Well, the people here in Northeast Pennsylvania that are the firefighters, that are the cops, that are the teachers, that are the people that hold society together, they're going to be voting against Joe Biden and Matt Cartwright in this election because they want their country back. And as President Trump says, they want to save America.
Well, we're with you 100%.
One last question before we wrap up here. What's your prediction? Matt's being very bullish. He really thinks we're going to win so many of these seats. Obviously, Pennsylvania is always such a tricky state. But do you think Pennsylvania is turning more red?
There's no doubt about it. My home county, Luzerne County, voted for Barack Obama twice. Now we voted for Donald Trump twice. In last year's municipal elections, we swept. Republicans swept. Pennsylvania is the swing state. My area is the swing county and the swing state. We are going to deliver a resounding message by electing a bunch of new Republican congressmen, including me, a Republican senator, and we're going to wake up on November 9th and we're going to say Pennsylvania delivered, and that's going to be the firing gun for the 2024 election when we take back the White House for an America First agenda.
You know, I agree, Jim. And just remember, sweetheart, you're from Florida. That used to be the ultimate battleground state. Right. Sure is turning more Republican. We used to worry about Ohio and Iowa.
Yeah, shut up, but I mean, I got to tell you, California was once Republican, so we can look at it.
Now you're going into way past. I'm just saying, we've had a lot of shifts. Yes, everyone focused on the negative,
right?
But there's a lot of positives. Iowa and Ohio, we're not even going to have a big problem. We're going to reelect a governor in Ohio. J.D. Vance is going to win that Senate race. And Pennsylvania, which was really hard to win, has really moved back. So it's pretty exciting. And thank you, Jim Bognet, for joining us, and best of luck to you. And thanks to all of you for tuning into another episode of America Uncanceled. Remember, we have expanded because we can't stop, right?
Because we're so technologically savvy, right,
into the
Matt?
podcast world, and you can listen to America Uncanceled with Mercedes and myself wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you again next week.